Who of you would be classified as a developer? Hands up. Okay, that's pretty much half of the audience. Who would I classify as an AI user? Okay, there's 2, 3, 4, handful. What's the rest doing? A serious question. Who in this room works for a company that has an AI strategy laid out and documented? All right, a couple of you. Good, same here. Want to give you an example? And that's all the marketing you get from me. Dell's AI strategy, 4 pillars. AI in our products. All the infrastructure products we sell are using AI to make them work better. You want an acronym for that? Who knows that acronym? AIOps. It's nothing else. You make your infrastructure run better by using AI. And I'll come back to that, what that means. So, second, AI on our products. There's over 10,000 companies in the European Union. Sorry for the Brexit people, I only have a European Union database. That lists use cases, what the use case is, and who can deliver that use case to you. These people need platforms. Okay? Remember, 10,000 companies, just the European Union, that help people to get their AI in production. Cool thing, isn't it? So AI on the products, yeah, to make them run best. Yeah, is my Llama that I can pull down from Hugging Face already customized so it works best with the Dell infrastructure? Absolutely. That's what we call AI on the products. AI in our processes and for our customers. And this is the most important one for every company. That means we're using it in every single process in the company. All right? Not a single specific use case. Every process, or as our founder, Michael Dell, said, we're going to build an AI-supported Dell that takes the old Dell out. Remember that. We're doing it for ourselves and for our customers, which you likely might be in one shape or the other. And the fourth thing, I'm losing my brain, but there's strings later. The fourth thing is work with the ecosystem. Remember that? It needs a village to build an AI, because you need to do anything from rack power and cooling, doesn't matter where it sits, all the way up to governance, risk, and compliance. European AI Act. How many of you have in their company at least one person that we could use, we could call an AI Act specialist? All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What was the audience, 100? So about 8%. Cool thing. So I'm going to engage you a little bit on this. So, AI beyond the hype. Okay. I love these monitors when they show you something and you go like, is that what you see on the screen? The evolution of AI. Some of our C-level people think AI is totally new. Who is representing the C-level of a company? No hands? Okay. No bosses here. Okay. I know this is being videotaped and everything, so I try to be as politically correct, but 3 years ago, when I was standing somewhere and said, folks, you should be doing AI. There's 1,500 use cases. Typically the board said, no, we're not doing AI. No reason, no use. Already 1,500 AI use cases were out there. that people could use to make them more productive, more efficient, more whatever. But you said it in the morning, only 6% of people in the world, companies in the world, have AI use cases implemented and really create an ROI that comes into their balance sheet. You know why? Any ideas? You should have the running microphone now. Come on. Any ideas? You can shout them. I can see you. You're thinking.
Well, I think they cannot buy the NVIDIA chips. It's too expensive. Right?
Okay. Cost? We'll come back to that. Yeah. The chips are too expensive. We've done studies on this, and there's material that you can use with your executives. Yeah. The reason why most of these companies have not seen the return of invest in AI, they built the infrastructure for a single use case. So these expensive, I don't want to call out the vendor, NVIDIA here, chips, they are expensive. But most of the community out there thinks AI is the same as building an HPC cluster. I see some nods. You understand the difference? A HPC cluster is you build a computer for one specific task. High performance computing, okay? You build a monster cluster with thousands of computers all working together for one single specific task. This is why you need to have the cheapest boxes on the planet to do this, because there's never an ROI on this. The reason why most of the people struggle, no matter how large they are, mid-market customers all the way to large banks, is they focus on a single use case and build an infrastructure for that and build all the environment for that. When you have more than a dozen use cases, then you see that value. We've done it ourselves. We have more than 500 in production. And you saw it, the first use case, they don't create that ROI. But you can create some more efficiency or whatever. The rest is to come when you add more use cases. So how many of you have more than 10 use cases in their company, AI use cases in their company? All right, 1, 2. Any more? 3. Is Deloitte still? Yeah, good. No worries. But that's the issue. So coming back to that, it's like the reason why people are struggling, the boards are struggling with that in the past was like it did not work out. The math did not work out. Now here's what happened about 18 months ago. All of a sudden, everybody knows AI. ChatGPT around. Oh yeah, Gen AI. Tell me one of your C members that's not saying, we have to do AI. Is there anybody in the company where the board or the chiefs are not saying, yeah, we're going to do AI? Who is struggling with their C-level understanding what AI means? Hands up. Nobody. Normally I see about 90% of the population say, yeah, they all talk about, they follow the same things, and I'm old enough. Yeah, the first wave was internet. If you had a .com somewhere, you were valued high. You did internet business. The next thing was 20 years ago. It was pretty exactly 20 years ago when somebody said cloud first. Cloud. And all of a sudden everybody had to run cloud. And we discussed it earlier. In the internet times, it took them about 10 years from the start to the hyperinflated expectations and the ridiculous evaluations of companies all the way to a bubble burst in 2000. I was working for Cisco at that time, so affected. I was attending the kickoff of a large consulting company on 13th of September this year. They got 750,000 people around the globe, so you can guess who they are. The first slide that they showed up on the screen was cloud first was yesterday. It wasn't because Dell paid them to say you need to be, no. Cloud, as I said 20 years ago and I say now, is not a place, it's an operating model. We're going to come back to that in a couple of minutes. The same is with Gen AI and AI. It is something you have to do everywhere in your company, not for a single use case, and you have to rethink every process, everything you're doing manually today. And generative AI, with all the hype around it, had created one thing. It has created the ability to do and build an AI without being a coder or a software engineer or a computer scientist. I'm a computer scientist and an electronic engineer. At that time, data science was not something I could do. I can still not do, but it doesn't matter. So AI is more than this, and you see it on the screen. Yeah. So when you look at the various markets that people can be in, as for us, it's three major areas. There's the pre-Gen AI time. I wrote my thesis 35 years ago. I was writing how to connect computers and build neural networks. So nothing new. We talked about earlier, we talked about vector programming language. Who was there when vector processing units were a big thing in computers? Okay. It was around 1990. Cray 2 was the fastest computer on the planet. It was a vector processing unit, a big vector computer. I was a digital equipment customer for you old enough to remember that company. And they had vector processing units that you could put into your computer like you do with a GPU today. But they could do a complete vector. Yeah? So even that concept is not new. It's just speeds and feeds have changed. Connectivity has changed. You know, we were at 10 megabits per second, and the fastest computer on the planet had 2 gigabytes of RAM. 80 nanoseconds. This is a joke today. An iPhone does better. So, pre-Gen AI, it was and is primarily use case driven. Analytics, all the intelligent, computer vision, robotics, RPA. Finance sector, you are doing RPA, don't you? Robotic process automation. That is artificial intelligence. It's not Gen AI. A lot of people now come and say, this is all Gen AI. No, this is, SBB in Switzerland has worked with us on an RPA project where the machine selling you the tickets can speak to you. It can speak Swiss German, understand and speak Swiss German. So, der Johann, der kann jetzt plötzlich das Ticket kaufen. He doesn't need to speak English anymore. And that's what's so important. Then there's this market of model training. Yeah? This is where you build these big machines, the big clusters and the big things. And then there's the new thing that hasn't got the attraction of the stock market and the people yet. We call it enterprise AI. And this is the most important piece. As enterprise AI means, how do I change my company from being a pre-AI company to a fully support AI company in every process, in every customer communication? To give you an example, if you want to do something, your sales organization wants to do something with, I want to send my customer a very specialized note document saying, look, can't read your name, sorry. Can you give me your name? Steve, here's what I know about your company. Here's what I think is where we can help. And this is very special for you, rather than, hey, Steve, you might be interested in doing Gen AI. We did that in a program we called it Challenger. And in the past, it used a dozen of people, 6 weeks to do all the research. Then craft a document, do a couple of revisions, have it all done for a single customer. By using Gen AI, that process is down to 2 hours with 2 people. Shall I repeat? A dozen of people searching all about your customer, what their requirements are, what Steve needs. 6 weeks to gather all the data and create the document down to 2 hours today. And the accuracy is better than before, but it doesn't matter. It's just that efficiency gain is unbelievable. So, efficiency, productivity, competitive advantage, you want to be better, faster, whatever you are. You want to develop new products, customized products for Michael. Or Brian. Brian? Brian. Sorry for the folks further in the back, can't read. I can hardly see you. So this is the 3 distinct markets. Yeah? But what we're going to see there is something, you see that down on the bottom, on the right side, both sides. Agentic AI. It's inferencing. For those of you, the job of a CTO, by the way, is to be the dumbest guy in the room. If there's any acronym that one of you will not understand, I will ask the question. Because then I'm doing my job right. I'm not here to give you 15,000 acronyms where you go like, lost you. Okay? So, agentic inferencing. Inferencing is when you use the AI. Training is when you train the model. But when you're using it, it's inferencing. You're using your chatbot, that's an inferencing thing. Agentic inferencing. What does that mean? Anyone? You had a long day. Okay. Everybody talks about building another supermodel. No, super large language model. Okay? Yeah. What's the average lifetime of an LLM today? 60 days. After 60 days, somebody else has created another model and claims that this is better than the other one. Faster, better, whatever. But do I really need a large language model that can write a novel when I'm reading financial reports and will translate that data into my database that you can use it in your capital markets trading? Probably not. Okay? So that leaves us to a shift to smaller models that work together as a team. Not one monolithic big GPT 6.7.8.9 and, oh yeah, build another big cluster to run it. First you need the big cluster to train it. Oh, nobody's got that money apart from the usual suspects. And then to run it you need a big cluster. And you're paying a lot of money to do both. There's no doubt about it. Coming back to it's like, this is freaking expensive. So, we want to have domain specialization of smaller language models that can create a very specific task. Unfortunately, the word I used to have was a sniper model. It's not good anymore. It's not politically correct anymore. But what's a sniper doing? He's trained on doing something very, very well. Yeah? And that's what this. You take a model that has been trained on a very specific function, then you start fine-tuning it with what you want it to do for your company, and you make it as small as possible so you can deploy it wherever you want to have it. Because why does my model always need to run in a central data center? Why can I not bring my model to where my data sits? And we're going to come back to that in a minute. So, in enterprise AI, there are 6 core capabilities we see. And the job of my job is not to train you on how to write a model code and whatever. You are way better than that. But it's like slice and dice it down and say, what is it, what a company does? What is the components we're going to need for that? So, retrieval augmented generation. You enrich a model that has been trained with generic data with your own data. For me, the most important use case. And this is where the component that has the most relevance, sorry NVIDIA, is not the GPU there. It's the vector database. I want to give you an example on this. A startup in a country in the Nordics area. They've developed their code, as many of you do, on a cloud platform. And then they said, by regulatory environment or by customer request, we need an on-prem version of this. Can you give me a quote? So they came to our team, and people yeah, we're using this on Amazon Web Service. We're using 10 H100 GPUs and dang. Our team just you know, when you get an RFQ for I need 10 H100 GPUs and I need a little bit of storage and I need a little bit of this, and you build that environment. And sure, that's about $1.5 million of cost. They were falling off their chairs. That's a startup. And then everybody reached out and said, what can we do? We need a better price. It's like, okay, guys. And this is why I'm here. Architecture, ladies and gentlemen, is becoming important. You need to understand what you're doing, and then we translate that into an architecture that works, not the other way around. So we ended up with only needing a single H100 GPU to get the same performance. Not a bad idea. So before you go like, this is all too expensive, understand what you're trying to build, understand how we can build these things in the right way. Yeah? And all these things can be built like this. Yeah? But RAG is the most easy to implement use case. And this is for every enterprise. Take services. You got manuals in 15, 20 different languages, and everybody's carrying around CDs or tablets and things. You can put it all in and drag it into a chatbot, and chatbot understands all the languages on the planet. The chatbot becomes all of a sudden a virtual human. We've got this. We showed it 18 months ago to people, and they were like, I want to use that in my cinema, Universal Studios. I want to use this for my ticket machines, so it's not just a voice that comes out, it's a person. Yeah? So it's all these things you can see. So chatbots, content, AI engines. How do I use my content? How do I build my content and hand it over to sales or marketing or processing people? Data management agents. We talked, some people talked about this. How do you get your data sorted before you can use it? Yeah? And for you coders, half of the audience, I learned Fortran and punch cards. Funny times. How many different AI languages are there today? I don't know the answer, by the way. Any ideas? Probably a dozen? Yeah, we got Python, we got Q and whatever. Every time there's a new language, you need to learn that language. It's nice for us, I'm the same. It's like, let me see how that works. Let me figure that out. But it takes a lot of time. So why can I not have a coding agent from folks like Codeum, for example, that speak 106 programming languages? And you say, okay, this is my Python code. Can you translate that into Q for me? How cool would that be? Between 35 and 65% more efficiency for you as a coder. You're not losing the job against this thing. It's as stupid as it can be. It knows how to take a Python code and translate it to Q or something else. So you got more time for your creativity and say, how do I make these things run better? How do I do my things better? Okay? Analytics agent, and then the last thing is the AI ops. You say fine-tuning my infrastructure. Because now it's funny. It's like we talked about this earlier. Sometimes you run KDB. Well, you're not running KDB today. You're running something else. And you decide that they're the best for your implementation for the data platform. You want to migrate to KDB. Are you going to rebuild the whole infrastructure for that? Or is there something we can do with AI ops to say, that's the parameters KDB will need. Can we software define that infrastructure and move it around and make it better? Would that be good? Okay, I see some nods. No, some skeptical people. Okay. Here's just an example. I got 16 minutes left. Good. Here's an example of scenarios we can see in the financial industry. I'm not going to bore you with example of use cases. Remember, there's 2,500 known use cases today in AI. 500 of them are Gen AI use cases. So even there, it's not about do you have to invent the wheel again. You need to understand what you're trying to do. And you might find a model on Hugging Face or Meta. I'm a firm believer in open source for models. Not everything can be open source, but especially the models, because your governance, risk, and compliance is getting easier when you know how it's written. And UAI Act says you need to document what you're using, how it was trained, and what it was done. So your GRC is becoming easier. But also, you know what it's made of. So there's about 1.2 million, is the latest statistic on Hugging Face, models that you can choose from. Not a bad idea. Yeah? So all you need to know is what you're trying to solve. So describing the problem and finding out how to do this thing in your company is becoming important rather than trying to program a model. Still, if you want to do that, be my guest. This is a cool thing to do. But then build a model that nobody else has built before, rather than trying to build a model that already exists. Because it's easier to fine-tune that one than to do the other one. So that's what's happening. Main areas of concern today, and we talked around that. Yeah? There's AI infrastructure. And when I say AI infrastructure, it might be something different than what I saw on a slide before, where the Q developer is responsible for the Python code and scaling the infrastructure. Okay, can I see the developers again? Okay, how many of you know how to build a hub and spoke Ethernet network? Because that's part of scaling an infrastructure. How to build a GPU, CPU cluster, how to use the right acceleration technology. There's over a dozen of them. So when you can kind of guess where I'm going. It's like, sorry for being politically incorrect. The use case builders, the developers, and the infrastructure people, we speak Chinese to each other. Or Chinese and Indian, or Chinese and German. I worked for Huawei for a while, so I tried to learn. I couldn't. I couldn't get the language. But that's what's happening in our companies. You get people talking about Ethernet and metro clusters and GPU clusters and whatever, and you need a platform. You need something that I can work. Yeah? Where is my data is the next concern. And where is my location? We already touched on this, and this is what we're going to look at. Yeah? But in order for you to do AI projects, if you're responsible for implementing an AI project, here's the things you need to consider. I created a nice Excel spreadsheet. Everybody can get that. It's open source. And we're using it internally. We're using it with our partners. We're using it externally with customers. I give it to customers and says, this is all the things you need to look at. And now you need to think who can do it for you. Is it your own or is it somebody else? Very easy. You want a single company to come in and own the contract, like Dell? Yes, we might outsource some of these tasks to somebody else as well. But then we own the contract. We're responsible to deliver this to you. But that's the things you need to consider. You're going to get the slides, by the way, and we got even more material for you, which is all open source. And you know how open source works? I build it, I give it to you, you make it better, you bring it back to the rest of us. Does that work? Good. So these are the things you need to consider. This is what your ecosystem will look like. This is what you need to do. Yeah? The next thing, location. Data. Where is my data? It can be sitting in your company, can be sitting in cloud platforms. Just to give you a rough idea, we got about 600 petabyte in the company, plus another probably double of that outside in customer or partner locations and cloud providers and whatever. You need to be able to use all that data. So the data platform is a very important piece. You also need to consider that most of the data is generated not in your central location. Yeah. For some use cases, yes. For a lot of use cases, it might be somewhere else. The nice thing is that it might be a wind park on an oil rig. Yeah. Not really in the finance industry, but you might have branches that generate data, and they will generate more data in the future than they do now. So, we need to have thoughts about that. We're gonna wrap this up in about 5 minutes with here's how you can tackle all of this by using functional blocks rather than acronyms. Okay? Digital humans is something that is not a future anymore. The lady you see on the far right side, at that time we called her Clara. It was the first version of a digital human. So you stand in front of a monitor, and the monitor was about the size of these things. It was like taller than me. So Clara was about my size, right in front. There was even a 3D version of it. You see her in 3D, and she talks to you. And you ask her a question, and she starts to respond. She understands your language. Okay, in the early versions, it was only English, yeah? But now you got large language models that can translate text from any language into another language, in speech to text. And, is it Whisper, or is it something else, or is it another LLM? I don't care, as long as we know what the functional block is. But this is a digital human that you can use so that somebody who doesn't have the domain knowledge, let's say in a branch office or in an ATM machine or whatever, all of a sudden can talk to a human. And when you feed that digital human with all your enterprise data and all your things, and you guardrail it right, it can be a digital worker. In order to do that, in order to build Clara here, that was not a single LLM. There were 6 LLMs working together. So you need to have all the visuals, you need to have the voice to text and text to voice and all these other things. Yeah. But that's the nice thing. It's like the moment you know what you're trying to build, I can show you a cooking recipe how that works. And then you define what you want to use. Are you going to build your own models? Are you going to buy some models? It doesn't matter. Because what we want to produce is this, digital workers, virtual agents. This is some statistics of our own. Yeah? On the very far left side, you see virtual agents that we use in customer conversations. And you see the 20,000 conversations per month, customer satisfaction over 90% positive. They're talking to a bot rather than to somebody on the phone that has no idea and just goes through a script. That's what we're going to see. Yep. So, lessons learned. 7 minutes to go. I'm going to be in time. 2/3 of all enterprise customers are in this mode at the moment. Stuck in pilot. Why is that happening? We talked about it before. You see the use case builders, and you see that little thing on the right in the middle, the data science thing. Yeah? You need a couple of things you click together, and now you can work as a data scientist or an AI engineer or ML engineer or Q engineer, whatever you call yourself. You built an AI, you built a data science model or whatever. That's what you think. That's what you speak. That's your language. And here's the other side on the bottom. This is what infrastructure people typically speak. You see the difference? So you see a couple of quotes here. Scaling from a pilot into production is The chief AI officer of Allianz recently said to me, Johan, the companies that help us to get from pilot into production are the ones that win the race. It's not about being the cheapest, selling us the cheapest server on the planet or whatever. That's all we're thinking. Is this something you see as well? How many pilots do you run that are still in a platform and you don't know how to roll it out? Because all of a sudden your 100-user pilot group turns into, we had that at Dell, now you have 50,000 concurrent users. You need to build a virtual infrastructure that supports 260,000 containers, 50,000 virtual machines, and feeds things out of a vector database with terabytes a second and sub-milliseconds response time. Okay? That's a nice thing to know. But the technology problems are not the big problems. What you see here is, and this is the one slide you use for executives. Do you see Python or GPU or anything on this? They won't get that. But every person understands the concept of a house. This is why we called it an AI strategy house. We jointly built that with a non-profit organization in Germany. All of us, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, ourselves, we invested in them 7 years ago when we started to build this and say, the mission was, how do we educate people on doing AI? Not what it is, not how to code it, what they need to do. So, very easy. The house has 4 floors. Okay? Ambition is for your C-level. That's the 3 things they need to think about. They don't need to think about, do I buy from NVIDIA or AMD or Dell or somebody else. They need to think about, what am I trying to do with my company? What is my future competitive advantage by using AI? And again, they probably need to learn something. So the good news is we got material for them so they can educate themselves without being exposed to somebody who goes like, and you don't know that? Fields of action is, where do I want to apply AI in the company at the moment and when? And the commitment, and this is interesting because you want resources like money for buying GPU or services or products or whatever. You also want commitment of the company that we're really doing it. Why are so many projects failing? Because there's no commitment from anybody. There's no people that understand what it is. That brings me to the enabling factors. Culture. Culture is communication. Your executives need to say, yes, we're going to become an AI company. This is the impact it's going to have on our company. This is why we're doing it. Yeah? They don't need to know bells and whistles and speeds and feeds and MLOps versus DevOps and all these things. Expertise, organization, culture is these factors that they need to learn what they need to do in the company. Again, good news. We even get learning paths for that. Technology and ecosystem is these 2 things. You see it, it's like this little bubble here. And then you drill down in technology. The code is another little bubble in that technology and ecosystem bubble. As much as we love to talk about it, they won't get it, but they get this. And I can tell you, we've already trained over 50,000 people on this planet on this one. And everybody said, now I'm getting it. Now I know what I need to do. And they need to know their roles and responsibilities, and we got all good documentation for it. It's like, here's as a CEO, here's where you start. Depending on where you are in the journey, it's like here's where you start, or here's you already got many use cases, and you need to think about how you do portfolio management. This AI use cases thing. It's like, how do I find them? How do I manage the portfolio? Because only when you get the portfolio running on this expensive infrastructure, you're getting the ROI. How do I make or buy them? Any idea how many implemented use cases were bought versus made by customers? 92% of all implemented AI use cases. Functional blocks. Let's go to my second last slide, and then I'm going to stop. thought I'm going to be quicker. Functional blocks in AI. This is my engineer. How to take this complex thing and say, what is it? How are we going to use this? And how are we going to build this? So here's 5 functional blocks in any AI system. You got sources. That's your data. And it can be sitting anywhere. Okay? So we need to bring these sources into a data platform. And you see, data contracts. Who's got data contracts in their company? We can do it in the panel here. Federated queries. No hands, okay? So 2 things not existing in your company. Vector databases. You don't use KX? Hands up. You use vector databases. Yeah? So that's the thing you do in the data platform for AI. You need a virtual infrastructure. So you can software define it, you can code it. You can say, this is what I need. And the infrastructure reacts to it and says, you're going to get that. Or is it going to be run in my data center, or is it bursting out to AWS or somebody else? I don't care. The virtual AI infrastructure needs to be able to do that. You need a model hub where you take a model, a pre-trained or your self-developed model, you customize it, you governance, risk, and compliance, you do all these things, you do the versioning, and you do the deployment later. But here's the fun, and you see that on the left side, and I talked about it earlier, because I'm 9 seconds over. Multiply all these numbers. This is millions of options. So we need to stop doing a single thing for a single use case or a single environment. We need to build a factory approach. Yeah, just on the trainings, this is funny, over 2,500 Gen AI trainings. Every self-announced professor of university you never heard of has now a Gen AI training. And guess what? Most of them are the same. They're talking about the fluff. They're talking about the la-la. Yeah? So that's why the factory is becoming important. The same way as we build a car factory or a shoe factory or whatever. You know your functional blocks that you need in a factory. You got data, and it can sit anywhere. And you need to bring that data into the factory. You got virtual infrastructure. No matter how, it can be from iPhone all the way up to super large data centers. You need an open ecosystem of software to pull this all together. And sorry to say that there's not a single software vendor can do all. Even the same in databases, you probably have multiple of them. We have about 12 of them. We have 12 standardized environments for data scientists, the data science platforms on top you saw earlier. It was 250 before. Now we have 12 that you can choose from. You click them all together and it works. Yeah? You have all the professional services from us, from others, to come in and do this work for you and create your use cases. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I stop here, is what we say is the AI factory. It's not about acronyms. It's not about, you need GPUs or DPUs or VPUs or ding, ding. Yeah? Understand that you need to bring all these components together. And we're here to help you. I got over 250 solutions. Whatever you might have as a technological problem, we probably already have a solution for it. KX is one of these partners. Yeah? And they have multiple things in a functional block that you saw before. Okay. Master of ceremony, please.